It's time for the Instigator, the in-your-face hockey podcast that is loaded with controversy and criticism. This hockey talk rant will spark your hockey thoughts and opinions. When controversy happens in the hockey world, the Instigator is there to fire off their opinion. You may agree, but you just might wholeheartedly disagree. That's what brings you back. Get ready for in-your-face hockey talk and controversy. The Instigator is hosted by Brad Baroud and is a production of Inside Edge Hockey News Radio.
It's time for episode 6 of The Instigator. Tonight on the show, we talk about Ottawa Senators star defenseman Erik Karlsson. And a couple of months ago, he made it very clear that he'd be the highest paid defenseman in the National Hockey League. That basically leaves his current team, the Ottawa Senators, out of the mix. So what should Ottawa do?
Inside Edge Hockey News. Dropping the gloves. And stirring the pot.
A couple of months ago, the comments that Erik Karlsson, Ottawa Senators star defenseman, made it very difficult on the Ottawa Senators in determining what they should do with the future of Erik Karlsson. He made it very clear that his contract demands are going to be very, very high, which is understandable for one of the top defensemen in the National Hockey League. But those comments have basically left the Ottawa Senators in a salary situation. They're what we would consider a small market team, and to be competitive, they're not going to be able to pay Erik Karlsson the dollar amount that he's talking, and that's put General Manager Pierre Dorion in a difficult situation, and one that's coming to a head now and is back in the news again with trade deadline drawing near, with next year being the final year on Karlsson's contract. Should the Senators act now and get a higher price value for Karlsson, or should they hold off and see how next year plays out and determine if they're able to work something out to keep Karlsson in Ottawa? I think it's going to be very tough to keep him in Ottawa. He's asking in that $11 to $12.5 million per season for 6 to 7 years long-term contract. It's going to be tough for them to handle that and to be able to field a quality team and pay other players on that team and stay marginally below that salary cap, which Ottawa needs to do to be viable. The price tag he's asking for is going to put him up in the top, definitely the top tier, if not the top, paid player in the league. You look at the other defensemen, and PK Subban leads that with a $11 million salary, a $9 million cap hit on that. Brent Burns is second at 10. Hedman, Weber, and Bufflin follow there. Karlsson's currently 14th with $7 million, and he's looking almost to double that. He's definitely one of the top defensemen and warrants a big salary, but it's tough to determine if you're going to warrant that much. He does have a no-trade clause right now, so for Ottawa to be able to act now and to move him, he is going to have to waive that no-trade clause, so that's another factor that plays in. I do have a solution to this problem, one that I think would benefit both teams, would maybe create some uproar in Ottawa and not so much in the other market, but my solution is to send him to Toronto. Now my first thought is that's a huge rivalry, and is it feasible to send your best player and possibly the best defenseman in the National Hockey League to your biggest rival? That's a tough pill to swallow, but these two teams have traded before with Dion Phaneuf heading up to Ottawa. A little bit different situation, much different actually, with Phaneuf, being what I consider an overpaid player and a player that was on his way out in Toronto, and Ottawa was willing to pick up that big salary, and he's actually done a lot better with Phaneuf because they haven't put him in the same situations that Toronto did, and the expectations haven't been quite as high as they were in the hockey mecca of Toronto. But here's why I think the Toronto thing will work. Toronto needs defense. Their defense is what is going to stop them from being a cup contender right now. They also have extra youth forwards that and depth in the forward that Ottawa would be looking for in return. They're somewhat expendable, and the problem in Toronto is they are not going to be able to afford all these players. They have to get Van Riemsdyk and Bozak figured out this year. They're both UFAs next year. And, you got Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Marner, all these guys coming up. And Riley Morgan, who's a $5 million cap hit. You got a lot of guys that are going to be asking for a lot of money, and I don't know how you're going to be able to keep all these forwards. Now, I know it doesn't make sense bringing in a guy that's going to be asking for the world in Karlsson, but even if you're not able to sign him, you have him for this year down the stretch and next year. Now, that's a heavy price tag to pay, and obviously the plan would be to sign him and solidify that Maple Leafs defense core, and I think you could do it, and I think it would actually work out better. You can't plug all your money in Toronto onto the forwards and leave your defense sitting back there with no salary plugged into them. So I think it's better to have depend on your depth and some entry-level contracts to get you through the next couple of years in Toronto while you're contending for this cup and making a run. But a move to bring in Karlsson now would, in my mind, make Toronto a cup contender. Without a move, I don't see how they'll make it through 2 rounds of the playoffs with this defensive core. So, who would Toronto have to give up to get Karlsson? I think option 1 would be like Mitch Marner, Kasperi Kapanen, and a second rounder for Karlsson. Or you could go Mitch Marner, Nikita Soshnikov, and a first rounder for Karlsson. Right now, Toronto would be more apt to give a second rounder because they acquired a second rounder from San Jose for this year's draft, so they actually have 2 picks in the second round. Ottawa, see, that's a problem, is they want to pick up some draft picks because they have no first rounder and no second rounder at all this season in the draft, so they'd welcome one of those. And it's obvious things are in complete turmoil in Ottawa. It's a complete mess, and they're looking for a quick fix and a quick rebuild. And what better way is to bring in some youth and a scoring punch like Marner that could give you 20 minutes ice time a night right now and dazzle and score some great goals for you and lead the way there. Another team that came to mind in this Karlsson thing was Edmonton, but the problem with Edmonton is they don't have the youth depth on forward to give up to get that defenseman. I think Toronto would be a much bigger fit. I know Ottawa fans are going to be upset, and that's, I guess, the whole key to this show. But long term, I think it might be better for Ottawa too.
Inside Edge Hockey News, lighting the lamp and raising the cup.
Thank you. Thank you for teaching me about teamwork and hard work.
Thank you for seeing me.
The real me. Not my size
or age. Not my race or gender.
Not the things that hold me back, but the real me. The person I want to be. The person I can be.
Thank you, hockey, for being more than a game.
Thanks for joining us on the Instigator Hockey Podcast. Check out Inside Edge Hockey News for all your hockey news. Follow us on all forms of social media, and most importantly, download the Instigator on your favorite podcatcher. Check us out on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeart, and YouTube. Thank you for listening. Enjoy this week's hockey action. Have an opinion and voice it.
Thanks for listening to the Instigator. Check back for future episodes or download the show on your favorite podcatcher. Keep up to date with all the hockey news at Inside Edge Hockey News. And check us out on all forms of social media. Until next rant, take care and enjoy the hockey action.
This episode was produced by Inside Edge Hockey News Radio and distributed by the Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.